Hello, my fellow Americans. I come to you in the spirit of love, not hate, not fear. Because when you are in the spirit of hate, fear, that's a negative vibration. And what happens is you honestly dumb yourself down. I'm speaking mostly to everyone, but especially MAGA. And MAGA, before you disconnect, hear me out because I am a constitutionalist Republican. Okay, I believe in all the amendments, especially the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. But this is not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about immigrants. And I want you to think undocumented immigrants before you judge and listen, hear me out. You always gotta ask and think who benefits and why. Now, I understand that a lot of you hate undocumented immigrants. Why? Because the media is the one indoctrinating you and conditioning you. Granted, I'm not saying that you should not have open borders and all that because obviously we have to protect the nation. You never know who's crossing those borders. But at the same time, the media will give you one story or two stories out of millions so you could hate a group for maybe they killed somebody or raped somebody. But you got to ask yourself why. See, and I'm going to show you historically to educate you, inform you, because my people perish for lack of knowledge. And I assure you, in America, we've been whitewashed. The history is incorrect and has nothing to do with race, okay? Because even Irish and many other so-called white people were slaves right here in America. I assure you that, okay? You got to look who benefits and why. So let me take you back a little to 1929. In 1929, if you don't know, Native Americans that a lot of you call Mexicans that were here from when we allegedly won the war against Mexico when we stole their land under duress. Many that were already American citizens, they were being removed from this country when they were born here, been here from thousands of years. 1.6 million Mexicans were removed. Of 65% were American citizens. Now hear me out, because what happened in 1929 and 1930s, if you recall, it was the Great Depression, right? What led to the Great Depression? So you got to understand, follow me here, because obviously if you have people working hard for a lower income, okay, it benefits the nation. And if you remove those people, what happens to the finances? It drops. You get a Great Depression. That was one of the factors. There were many others, but I want you to follow me here, because what happened in 1913, I've written about this. In 1913, you had a group of families hiding under corporations, parasitical elites, that what they do from thousands of years, they go from nation to nations like parasites, and they rob the government or the nation's wealth. Once they suck that nation dry, they move on to their next host. It happened in Spain, it happened in Dutch, it happened in Britain. Britain was a powerful military. So I want you to think about this, because again, they were in Britain, and then what happened? Besides getting Britain in a war with France, we all heard the story about Napoleon Hill, right? It was all set up. They got into a fight for many years, and then they declare France had won when it was a lie, causing the stock market to crash, and they went in Britain, and then they went, bought off everything in Britain, bought off a lot of their stocks and their holdings and all that, and then through the media, then declared the next day via newspaper, oh no, the one that actually won was Britain, right? After they apprehended Napoleon. And obviously, the market went back up and they became very wealthy. Well, that goes back on, I could go back to Egypt, but I want to continue here, because these elite groups of people like J.P. Morgan, the Rothschilds, many other, I've written about this, came over here, had a secret meeting in Jekyll's Island in 1910. It was unconstitutional because according to the Constitution, they didn't want no private banks because it has happened before in history, and the Founding Fathers knew about it, and they didn't want America to fall under private banks. So, in 1913, you had what you know today, the banking cartel, as a Federal Reserve Bank or Federal Reserve System. It wasn't a bank. It was powerful people, and they waited right until December, right before Christmas, when everybody was away, Congress was away, to vote on this and pass the Federal Reserve Act, which was unconstitutional, and created the arm or its agency at the same time, which you know as the IRS. Well, when they became the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, what happened in 1914 in World War I, right? We didn't get involved until 1917, but it was World War I, and obviously here in America, while World War I was going, white people, blue eyes, a lot of them, Germans, were arrested, detained, even killed. I could go back to even the 1800s with China and what happened. It happened as well. So as soon as I heard here the Alien Enemy Act, me knowing history, I already knew what was coming, and I predicted this in over a year ago in videos. Many times I said it, that a lot of people would suffer. Okay? A lot of Americans, because it's a plan. Follow me here. I don't want to lose you. World War I happened. Then came, they got a lot of Mexicans from Mexico, besides the Mexicans that were already here in America, that helped out, because a lot of men were fighting at war over there, and people needed to keep the factories going and its production and fruits. So they needed the Mexicans. Oh, you could come over. But then the reparation, they got rid of the Mexicans in 1929, 1930, 31, 32, 33, over 1.6 million. But it didn't stop there, because in World War II, obviously we at war with Germany. Hitler blamed a certain group of people. Now I want you to think, it was not just Jews per se, because they're good Jews and they're bad Jews. It's a sect group of people hiding under religion. European Jews hiding under religion. And what happened was many of them were asked to leave and go to Palestine. Something created, an idea created back in the late 1800s until the Balfour Declaration in 1917, in which they wanted, right, they wanted to create the state of Israel. A lot of Germans were comfortable. They didn't, Jewish Germans didn't want to leave. So they did the Habara Agreement, look it up, in which they wanted to get a lot of Jewish people move over without losing their wealth back to Palestine. And there was in the newspaper, it was, you can look it up, Judah declares war against Germany. Look it up. Since they were wanderers, going back to Cain, who was a wanderer, and I'm not going to get too biblical, what happened was they were in different nations and obviously created the war against Germany because they had a plan. They went after Germans, they went after Jews, they went after Jehovah's Witnesses, actors, authors, and all that. But what happened? They had a plan. What was that plan? That plan was a whole new world order with one world bank. And since they moved over from Britain over here, as I said before, they created the world global currency that you know as the dollar. Follow me here. They manipulated. Britain went down because World War II was very drastic for Britain. They might have won in one sense, but they actually lost because they couldn't have the money to keep the soldiers and the British going, and America took advantage of that. And in 1944, if you recall, we created, under the Bretton Woods Act, we got all these nations to merge their currency with the dollar. And the dollar was backed by gold. 1 ounce of gold was $35. Excuse me, $35 was 1 ounce of gold. So we created a world global currency. It was their plan. Because remember, the Federal Reserve is not government. It is an institution, a group of family and people. Now, once they did that, if you recall, going now back to 1971, the gold standard, it was taken, the dollar was taken or was severed from the gold standard. Thus, a lot of people, a lot of nations started dropping the dollar until 1974, where under OPEC, Saudi Arabia, we forced all these nations who wanted to buy oil, they had to trade their currency to the dollar, creating a higher demand for the dollar. So I hope you're still with me here. Because remember, the whole idea what happened in the Second War was to create that world currency to rob nations and force them to join IMF, World Banks, and predatory lending, fractional lending. Look all this up and verify what I'm saying, the money multiplier. So, not that the whole world was trading in dollars, because there was no other competition. It kept on, right? We kept doing the same thing until here, when they started mentioning the Alien Enemy Act. And I already knew based on history what was coming, and I predicted it. And it was obvious because obviously we have due process, we have amendments that you may disagree, but I read it before regarding people, and how these people have equal protection under the law when they are in our land. Mind you, a lot of those undocumented immigrants is a blowback because we have gone in Latin America as well as in Middle East, not only forced them to use the dollar, which we rob them through inflation, the invisible tax, but obviously taking over the democratic leaders when they don't represent our interests. Okay, we've done that many times, thus we have robbed them, and that's the blowback. Okay, they come back over here because we get cheap labor. Remember, a lot of the companies are owned by these certain groups, and they relocate and outsource the production to other countries to sell it for cheaper while you're buying it, and they create that much profit. And now you're not getting employment neither. So, in 2024, Saudi Arabia, in June, saw that China was becoming too powerful and that America is dying as an empire because it's overextended in debt, is over leveraged. And so that China, because they have so many more people, have a higher demand for oil, and they was not going to buy the oil in what? In dollars. So Saudi Arabia said, okay, and he joined BRICS. For those of you who don't know who's BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Iran is part of BRICS. Venezuela was joining BRICS as well as Mexico and many Latin countries. So we created this issue going after undocumented immigrants, especially Latinos. Look around. Because we knew not only were we were going to war with these Spanish countries, because they are a threat to the dollar, okay, but also because these companies that own the prisons, private industry, they make millions and billions of dollars by having immigrants. So if you look at the immigrants, it's not the lies that you think it is, that they're grabbing immigrants and sending it back to their country. They might have done a few just to create the idea, because again, the media is owned and controlled by these people. So they feed you lies, right? And you believe it. And we know this to be a fact because if you look at alligator Alcatraz in the state of Florida, thousands of them have disappeared. According to their families, attorneys, and all that, they cannot be found somewhere in the system. Children are being taken as well, also disappearing. But what else has happened? I want you to think about this. Because people have been reported, ICE agents, that have been raping young women for months. You heard it correctly, for months. Now, if you think about it, if you're an undocumented immigrant, the whole idea wasn't to take them over to their country, to get them out of here. So why in their prison for months being raped? And this is a fact. You can fact check this. That tells you, guys, that this is not about getting rid of immigrants, but it's about free labor, slavery, right, under the amendment of the 16th of the Constitution. And obviously they're abusing rape. And this is why you got to understand that the ICE agency is not there for your best interest. It's a lie. It's to create the powerful elites. As far as a few being criminals, okay, yeah, I agree, get them out. But FBI could do that, and the cops. This is not about that. So for those of you who ignorantly say, oh, that would not happen and they stood home, people are protesting for people's rights. The same rights. Because people think, oh, law, like if it's not followable. Think about this. If people didn't fight for their rights, you as a woman wouldn't be able to vote today or go to work. You wouldn't be able to speak up. Black people would still be sitting in the back of the bus. My grandmother had to sit in the back of the bus. And look how light I am. Because once you are mulatto, 1/12, you will consider black or Negro. Many people were already here in America that were black Indians, okay, Native Americans, and they were taken off and considered blacks. There's a lot going on that you don't know. I'm Puerto Rican. We were the first Native Americans that they encounter, right, called Arawak Taino, going all the way from the Caribbeans all the way up to actually South Carolina as well as Georgia. And we know this because our original language, Arawak, is written in stone in caves. And there's a lot of artifacts that you cannot deny. Okay? But that being said, how they always win? Divide and conquer. They get us all fighting among each other, like Republicans and Democrats, like white and black, religion, right? And they feed us contrarian views, CNN, Fox, and you start fighting with each other. You start fighting with your neighbor, your brother, and all that, not realizing that the elites, so-called elites, a sect of a group of Jews, evil Jews, blood-sucking parasite Jews like vampires, have taken over our country. And you see it via AIPAC. Congressmen, senators, 92% have been bought off and paid by AIPAC. Not only that, if you go back to even, let me give you an example, Puerto Rico, 1493, Santo Domingo, 1492, what happened? You heard the story, Christopher Columbus, right? Now, he brought ships along. Who did he bring along with him? What was he? We all thought he was Spanish, right? Because he came from Spain. But he was not Spanish. He was that group of evil people. And how we know this? What happened in 1492? They expelled who? A lot of these fake Jews was expelled. And what happened right after they were expelled? Look up the golden years of Spain, right after they expelled. Now, you got to ask yourself this question, because this ain't being anti-Semitic, because it's not all Jews. There's a lot of, again, there's a lot of great Jewish people that woken up. It's just many of us has been indoctrinated, American as well. But why have us, that certain group of people, been thrown out 109 times? 109 times from different countries. Okay? Look that up. Now, I'm going to continue because, and I'm sorry to say, Christ has to do with consciousness. The person you believe to be called Jesus was Jeshua, and the message he came to bring to this earth has been changed. All right, it happened because, again, the Council of Nicaea, Rome as an empire, was going to taking over different countries with different beliefs and pagan beliefs, and he created what you know today as Christianity. And I'm sorry, that's why I believe the system itself is antichrist. They got together with these groups of people, okay, that you believe as Jews, they're not Jews, along with the Vatican at the time, and created these books. See this book here, the Bible? This didn't come straight from God. There are different books here. Matter of fact, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and the Deuteronomy, is the Torah of Jewish books. And if you look at what it says, it has been used against us. Yes, there's truth in here because there's different books from different writers that saw things in the future. But the Bible has been manipulated. Books taken out, other books being changed to mislead you. Paul, me personally, in the Bible, who most Christians follow, who was Roman, what happened? He actually was anti-Christ. He brought another message that was against the message that Christ brought, or Jeshua brought to the people. Now, if you doubt me, before you knock me down, I want you to look at this, because look, in the beginning, the first book that you know as Genesis, it was changed. The word has changed. The real original word was Elohim. Not El, but Elohim. It's a plural word. Look it up. I'm not lying to you. It's a plural word for gods, plural. And if you look at the message, they have changed. And I know I grew up in church. They'll tell you, oh, it's the Holy Spirit, the Father, and the Son, because they want to change that. No. It says, let us make. Listen to it. Let us make man in our image. Who's more than one. Some people may believe that was aliens. Some people may believe, whatever the case may be, was plural. And we know it because if you read further, it talks about that the sons of God looked down at the what? At the sons or the women of man, and find them basically beautiful, and descended upon them and took them as wives. Now, I want to go deeper, because the biblical version that you heard when Moses left Egypt. That's the biblical version, right? Where did he go? A two-week journey became 40 years. Where did he go? He was in the desert, right? For 40 years. And he went to the so-called promised land, based on what you believe in the first 5 books. What was the promised land? Wasn't it Canaan? Now, I'm going to give you some Bible verse so you can verify certain things that I'm going to say, okay? Because I know it's hard. The truth hurts. But if God Almighty was going to give him a promised land, why give him a land already inhabited by indigenous people? He's God. He created the heavens and the earth. Why not give him an area where it's empty for them, where honey comes and all that? No, they had to go in there, killed a lot of the people, burned everything, and raped virgins. You hear me? Kill even the kids, the babies, and all. That's why this cannot be God. Like, that's the God you believe? That's not the God that Joshua came and preached about. They lied to you. Okay? Look at verse Numbers 31:15-18 about the Median Wall. Have you allowed all the women to live? Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has not known a man by lying with him. But all the young girls who have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself. Slaves, Numbers 31:32-35. Rape. The book of Joshua 6:20-21. They devoted all in the sea to destruction, both men and women, young and old, oxen, sheep, and donkeys. Book of Joshua 10:40. He left no survivor, but utterly destroyed all who breathe, as the Lord of Israel commanded. I mean, I got verses here that even speaks about Moses that was mad because they left the women alive because they wanted for themselves, right? The spoils of war. And Moses was mad, said, no, kill all of them. I told you to kill even the babies, the children, except what? The virgin girls, which they took upon themselves. Now, I could give you all these verses, so you got to question, is that the God you believe in? Does that sound a God that was jealous? Does that sound superior? That's a God created in your own image, not the actual God, the Almighty, the essence where it resides right in. That is within you. You are the essence of God. You are more powerful than you understand. They have lied to you. Keep in mind that we all, I'm from, my ancestry was Arawak Taino, indigenous people. We had our own belief. The Christianity was forced upon us. They killed us. They raped our women. They cut our arms. They forced us to believe in Christianity. And that's the fact. Joshua came to show you how to tap into that Christ consciousness, how to vibrating in the spirit of love. But he was also a rebel. Don't mistake it, because when he saw in the temple the money changers, right, that they were debasing the currency, he whipped them and turned the table over. Okay, so a lot of you have been mistaken to be docile and complying. Oh, comply, and they lying to you. Okay, just like Nazi Germany they did, you're doing the same thing, and you are defending the slave catchers. You are defending ICE. When I don't agree with them, period. And the way I saw it, you are evil. As soon as you join that program to catch people, your heart is evil. Therefore, there are consequences to that. And I tell you more. Okay, I've written a lot and I did see a lot, and I'm going to add to this. I told you about what's going to happen, and I said it years ago in some video. I told you that Iran is a lot more advanced than most people give them credit for. Even before you saw they had all those missiles. So I knew because I saw it. I know they have the technology that could turn those ships off. They have satellites. They have missiles that go 15 to 20 Mach speed. That's 20 times the sound of sound. We cannot compete. The technology they have is a lot more than you think and understand, and you will see that. Israel, the Zionist, a fake Zionist Jew, as Revelations 3:9 says in 2:9, they will be destroyed. Okay, this is Babylon here in America, and I'm sorry. There is a battle right now within good and evil, and if you support ICE, you support this government that has lied to you, that has used homophobia and all these stuff to lie to you, you're going to fail. You're going to see that I'm correct, unfortunately. And what's coming to America is really, really bad. And the only thing I can tell you as a person is to be in the spirit of love. Not hate, not fear, because your IQ goes down and you easily manipulate it. I need you to understand that. I need you to fight for humanity. Love humanity. Not go against it because you're being manipulated. Just like they were manipulated the Mexicans back in the late 20s and 30s, right? And it was to introduce a new currency. The agenda is the same thing. Private prison, make a lot of money, be able to take over Latin American countries. And I said it, and look, Venezuela is one of them. It's going to be a lot more. We're going to try with Mexico. We're going to try with Cuba. I said it, and as you can see, it's happening. But they're not going to win this time, and I'm sorry. Because we're not fighting against our country, America. We are Americans, especially the Native Americans. All right? We're fighting against foreign entity elites that are dividing we, the people, into white and black, Republican, Democrats, and they don't have your best interests. That's what I have for you today because it's getting long. Bye-bye.